The Supreme Court taking up the issue of birthright citizenship. This is happening as we speak, and totally fascinating. I got to tell you guys, I actually think there's a very good chance that Trump gets his way on this one. Because let's face it, in 1868, when they put this thing into play, it was a totally different ballgame. You didn't have people coming here, flying in from all over the world, in some cases legitimately, right? I mean, they did a story on this. What do you know, on 60 Minutes years ago, about how Chinese women were coming into the country so that they could have their children here in order to secure passports for them. All right, they weren't thinking about that in 1868 when they wrote the 14th Amendment. All right, here you go. Here's the 14th Amendment on the screen. Let's take a little look. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. The 14th Amendment also goes on, ratified in 1868, to say, you know what? If you're the child of a foreign diplomat, you don't actually get citizenship. But what this really was about slavery, effectively, back then, and they wanted to ensure that people who were born to slaves would become Americans. 226,000 babies, though, now are being born every year to non-citizens, according to the Migrant Policy Institute. So things have kind of changed, and now you have a system that effectively rewards people for coming here illegally and then having kids, which, of course, we're, as taxpayers, responsible for. Justice Samuel Alito, let me share this one with you, observing that there are 680 federal district judges, meanwhile, which he says sometimes get things wrong, and allowing a single one of them to freeze a presidential policy nationwide would be a problem, right? Is a problem. Because you can't really have that kind of chaos. And whether it's President Trump or whether it's President Biden or whether it's President Obama, if a president puts something through and then one single judge decides to get in the way of it all, you kind of have a chaotic situation. And as for those 226,000 babies that are being born, what happens? Like if the state of New Jersey says, well, we're fine with it, and we're going to ignore this executive order put in place by the President of the United States, then, when you go to Texas, does that person no longer have citizenship? You can understand, right, how complicated this would be. So from just a sort of management standpoint, administrative standpoint, you got a problem. And then you kind of have a problem overall in terms of what the original intention in 1868 was about. And I want to go to what the president is saying on this today. Here is his Truth Social post. Big case today in the United States Supreme Court. Birthright citizenship was not meant for people taking vacations to become permanent citizens of the United States of America and bringing their families with them. All the time laughing at the suckers that we are. The United States of America is the only country in the world that does this. And for what reason, nobody knows. But the drug cartels love it. We are, for the sake of being politically correct, a stupid country. In actuality, this is the exact opposite of being politically correct. And it is yet another point that leads to the dysfunction of America. Birthright citizenship is about the babies of slaves. As conclusive proof, the Civil War ended in 1865. The bill went to Congress less than a year later in 1866 and was passed shortly after that, as I said, ratified in 1868. It had nothing to do with the illegal immigration for people wanting to scam our country from all parts of the world, which they have done for many years. It had to do with the Civil War results and the babies of slaves who politicians felt correctly needed protection. Please explain this to the Supreme Court of the United States. Again, remember the Civil War ended in 1865 and the bill goes to Congress in 1866. We didn't have people pouring into our country from all over South America and the rest of the world. It wasn't even a subject. What we had were babies of slaves. Thank you for your attention to the matter. Good luck with this important case. God bless the USA. Well, you know who had something to say about this? The representative from Texas. I want you to hear his comments on this because they're important in light of all this.
I understand more than anyone that we are a nation of immigrants, but there's a difference, stark difference, between giving citizenship to the children of slaves, the children of those subject to the Middle Passage, the children of sharecroppers, and the children of those who were once considered property, and giving citizenship to the children of people who cross the border illegally, stay in taxpayer-funded luxury hotels, who receive free Xboxes, free cell phones, free flights around the country, and 3 square meals a day. There's a big difference. My great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation, Rosedale Plantation in Louisiana. He had to join the Union Color Guard to gain his freedom. By morphing the citizenship clause into something that it wasn't meant to be, it's demeaning to descendants of slaves like me. And not just me who served this country, but my father is a retired colonel. My sister went to West Point as a retired colonel. My brother went to West Point. We are talking about a direct descendant of a slave that earned the right to be in this country and passed that ilk down to his ancestry. People bled for it. People died for it. And it means something. The purpose of the 14th Amendment that President Trump's Birthright Citizenship executive order is that the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment was never meant to apply to children of illegal or legal aliens. Allowing birthright citizenship to stay in place dilutes the citizenship of not just Black Americans like me, but every single American citizen that had to earn it the right way. Let's say this in black and white. Either you're a U.S. citizen or you are not. Now, the left has spent decades cheapening what it means to be an American citizen. They've quite literally been chipping away at the basic value of American citizenship. They pretend to be altruistic, but we know the truth. Ozzy Osbourne's daughter said on The View that we have to let illegal immigrants in this country because who else will clean our toilets? We hear it all the time. Who will pick our crops? And even though that we know that American citizens are the majority of those people picking our crops, we know what you're insinuating.
Yeah. Listen, Trump making the point that this was written at a very, very different time when we didn't have people coming here to establish something different. Now, by the way, I'm not saying that we shouldn't accept immigrants. Let me be very, very clear on that. All right, immigration is a wonderful thing. We're all here because of immigration, right? But we're here because of legal immigration, not illegal immigration. So why would you reward somebody if they come here illegally by saying, hey, we're going to give your kid a passport? That does not make any sense. And so it's frankly just foolish. It's bizarre to be using 1868 language and applying it to today's society. This came up on C-SPAN just this morning, and this is funny. I want to show you the reaction. I don't think the anchors quite know what to do, but somebody called into the show, and they're like, listen, you know what happens? People are coming here from China to have their kids. And in this case, and I can't... I haven't sourced this myself, but this person is suggesting that the Chinese government is deliberately sending people here because, hey, why not? Then you get a few little spies along the way if you want, right? You got to think through the implications of this stuff. Let's watch.
There are houses where the Chinese government takes citizens that when they're in their 7th or 8th month, they ship them here for a month. They let them have their children. And then once they have their children, they take them back to China, where now they're U.S. citizens, but they're raised in China. They're loyal to China. We know they're doing it, but they're still getting away with it.
Whoa, right? So they're still getting away with it. Now, if that's the case, and by the way, we shouldn't be naive about these things. We got to actually start looking at something that was ratified in 1868 for very specific reasons associated with the Civil War and modernize it for today's day and age. So this is going to continue to be a huge issue, trust me. And Donald Trump is not going to give up on this one. As I said, Sam Alito pointing out something that's kind of obvious, that you can't have a situation, at least from a clerical standpoint, and that's what they're looking at right now, where everybody's coming up with a different rule when it comes to citizenship. Right? Sometimes you got to question the logic of these people. But I think we know what it's really about. It's just Trump derangement syndrome effectively on steroids, like something you've never, ever seen before.